Hey everybody, my name is Spencer, and in this video I'm going to talk about a fun, exciting racing game called Cubitos from AEG. I'll tell you a little bit about the game, who I think will enjoy the game the most, and if ultimately you should buy it. But first, please reward my script writing, videography, and editing by subscribing to the Lighten Up initiative. You won't regret it, unless you hate children. Alright, let's go! What do Cheetos, Fritos, Tostitos, Doritos, and Cubitos have in common? None of them have any nutritional value. Even though the box art features the hairy-legged cheese man, Cubitos is not about cheese. In Cubitos, there's this thing called the Cube Cup, an annual race of strategy and luck. Players have a cube-shaped animal runner on a racetrack, supported by a team made up of numerous dice. At the beginning of the game, everyone starts with the same 9 dice. Yes, 9. 7 basic gray dice and 2 slightly better dark gray dice. Throughout the game, players will also have the opportunity to purchase additional dice. Those represent colorful characters with special abilities. Something to point out here is there are so many variations of these colored dice. During setup, you'll choose which variations to use. For each of the 8 colors, you can pick from 7 different characters with unique abilities. That's 56 characters. I tried doing the math to determine how many total combinations you can make. I arrived at 2 different numbers. It's either 448 or 1,420,494,075. Not sure which is right. Either way, that's a lot of combinations. Can a game even pull that off? You bet your ass it can. That's the name of one of the characters. You'll also be able to choose from Wiki Dinosaur, Super General, Batter Beaver, Leader Cheesin', Pina Cublada, Chili McChillister, Captain Bark, Smelly Cat, and many, many more. Each has their own unique ability. That's a lot to keep up with, so thankfully each one is explained in detail in the rulebook. So if you care about replayability, this is a major plus for you. Now the interesting thing about all the dice in the game is that they have very few faces. Most sides of the dice are blank, and there's a reason for that. In each round of the game, players simultaneously roll their dice according to their limit to attempt to get the best results possible. Yes, simultaneously, which I appreciate because it really helps reduce downtime. Some faces on the dice have foot symbols on them, which make the runner move along the track. Others will grant coins to purchase the character dice, each with varying costs. And 4 coins can be spent to move a runner 1 space. Now this is when you may roll those special abilities I mentioned earlier. After rolling, players look at their results to determine if they want to re-roll. Odds are that you will only have a few hits, or dice that show symbols. If a player is unhappy with their result, they can re-roll any blanks they have to try to get more hits. Players can re-roll as many times as they want, but if, after having at least 3 hits, a result shows all blanks, the player busts. They may no longer roll, and all their hits must be discarded without effect. That, my friend, is what we call pushing your luck. I must say, I usually end up busting 5 or 6 times. I don't really have a whole lot of restraint as evidenced by my board game collection, though I am working really hard to get it down to a reasonable number of 100. As a consolation for busting, they can move their secondary figure around the fan track, which can sometimes result in credits or increasing the number of dice they can roll. After the roll phase, players will simultaneously, hooray for simultaneous play, use dice abilities, move on the track using feet and coins, or credits. There are special spaces on the tracks that grant bonuses like gaining credits or the ability for players to remove weaker dice from their pools. After running, players then have the opportunity to buy up to 2 dice of different colors. The round ends and a new one begins. This will go on and on until one player reaches the finish line. So let's talk about some pros. You've got LeBron James, Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, no relation by the way. And now let's talk about the pros of Cubitos. Just a side note here, yes, I did have to go to Google and search professional athletes in order to write that mediocre joke. As I mentioned, I love simultaneous play. It's a nice benefit designer John DeKleer has designed into a few of his games, including the continent-building game Egos. John DeKleer has recently become one of my favorite designers because of his versatility. But what do you think the D stands for? John Designer Claire. John Dapper Claire. I'm gonna go with John Donut Claire. Ha! Wouldn't it be awesome if it was John D. E. Claire? Because then it would be John Donut Eclair. Also, the varied combinations is a huge plus for me. Now, choosing the characters you can play with might be overwhelming. I appreciate how AEG included champion tours in the rulebook. There are 7 recommended sets of characters to be played as a tour, though, of course, you don't have to play all 7 in a row. That's the beauty of the game. You can set up however you want. For each set, part of the strategy of the game is discovering the best combinations of dice to buy and roll together. For example, my intelligent, beautiful, and talented wife discovered a winning combination of Pinch Eater and Smelly Cat. With Pinch Eater, she could set any dice in her roll zone to any face. Then she would set Smelly Cat to gain 2 feet. It worked out very well for her. There's actually a lot to play around with in terms of strategy, from the dice you choose, to when you execute their abilities, to which direction you choose to move, to which spaces you choose to land on, to how you save your credits and spend your money. It's more thinky than its hairy-legged cheese man might lead you to believe. There's a super helpful player mat that walks players through each phase of the game, and I appreciate that. And finally, I want to point out the storage system in the box. There are numerous boxes, each meant to hold designated components, and then the storage boxes are used as dice trays to organize the components while you play. It's genius! As for cons, well, not really anything major. I do find that if players aren't quick to figure out the best combinations of dice to buy, the race can start out pretty slow. The first several turns may only have a player moving one space at a time or no spaces at all. And if you're playing with several people who like to push their luck, well, obviously they forfeit their moves if they bust, so they aren't going to make much progress. I had one game take over an hour and a half, even though the estimated playing time is 30 to 60 minutes. Eventually, though, as players add more and more dice to their pools, the pace does start to pick up. I think once you've played through it a few times and begin to understand how the game works under the hood, the plays should go quicker. There is the possibility of a runaway runner, like if one person is better at deciding when to stop. Luckily, there's a neat catch-up system that lets players in the back roll extra dice depending on how far back they are. So, having said all of that, perhaps you've been able to determine who this game is for. But if you need someone to do your thinking for you, here's my opinion. Though it is a racing game, I think the emphasis is more on building the best pool of dice. Players who enjoy the deck or pool building mechanisms will probably enjoy Cubitos, but only if they enjoy rolling dice. And when you add in the luck pushing element, the gameplay can get even more chaotic. But chaotic racing can make for a really good time. Personally, deck building is one of my very favorite mechanisms, and I love how it's implemented using dice in Cubitos. In fact, it reminds me a lot of Dice Masters, where you build your team of hero dice over the course of the game. If you like that, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy this. It's not too complex of a game either. As long as you can explain the concept of deck, bag, or pool building, you should be able to explain this to a wide variety of gamers, and probably at ages 10 and up. However, for gamers who do not like rolling dice, or pool building, or gambling, or randomness, or cubes, this probably isn't your cup of tea. So, final question. Should you buy it? Is it worth money? Well, the MSRP for the game is $59.99, and while that's a little steep, you are definitely going to get your money's worth because of the huge variety of characters to play with. With each set, you are discovering new ways to build the most efficient pool of dice, and that's nice to explore in every play. You're going to get a lot of plays out of it, too. It's also a high-quality game. AEG has an excellent track record with their production value, and Cubitos is no exception. And the organization system also helps justify the cost. Plus, it's just a fun game that offers a wacky experience every time you play. If that all sounds worth it to you, go for it. Time for my final score. I give Cubitos 4 out of 5 Shimmy Shimmy Dinos, or Dapper Doggies, or whichever one you want to use. Thanks so much for watching this review. If you do decide to purchase the game, would you consider using the Amazon link in the description? If you do, a tiny portion of the sale will come back to help the Lighten Up initiative. And if you want to help out the channel in another way, check out patreon.com/HeyLightenUp. Patrons at all levels get a personalized thank you video from yours truly. Until next time, don't take the board game hobby too seriously, like crying because your dope cat came up blank. Just lighten up.